Hello viewers, this week's Daily Race C on GT7 takes us to my favourite combination in the game, Group 3 around Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Let's jump in. And we're going to be jumping straight into some qualifying in the BMW M6. So my first lap, right, wasn't exactly the best. 5 seconds off the pace, a 158.678. And this kind of left me with a bit of head scratching as to how I was so far off. Now, second lap, trying to beat the Ghost, and it was just really a case of trying to get accustomed to this circuit in this kind of car once again. It's my favourite combination in the game. I love this track in these kind of cars, but it took me a while to get down to 55.9. I was a bit perplexed still as to how I was still actually 2.5 seconds off the top time in the world, as you can see. And then I realised setups are available for this race, as they have been in some races recently. There is my setup for this car, and this immediately made the car a lot better. I mean, you can't really be entering this race without a setup if you want to have any chance of doing well. Immediately the car felt a lot nicer on corner exit. This BMW M6 is actually quite sketchy on corner exit, but the setup kind of calmed down the rear end, eventually getting a 54.9, so about 1.5 seconds off the top time. So we're getting there. Race number 1. Starting 5th on the grid, courtesy of that 54.9. So a fairly decent starting position, but we can certainly try and move forward from here. 10 laps the race is, and it's pretty much a sprint race. You have to do one pit stop. You don't necessarily have to change tyres, but you do have to come into the pit lane at least once during the 10 laps. So starting off here, just behind Rory, tiny bit of contact there through the very slow and clumsy turn 3, exiting through turn 4. And it wouldn't take long actually to get into P4, as Rory just comes up off that curb through the Schumacher S, continues turning left into a right-hander and up into 4th immediately. And we can now set our sights on the Lamborghini Huracan there in 3rd place. So the podium became the main aim here quite quickly, with the German behind in the Nissan GTR, and it was actually really good to see a variety of cars being chosen for this race, although I do think the Genesis will turn out to be the meta for this week, and more people will choose it as the week progresses. End of lap number 2 then, closing up to the back of the Lamborghini, who goes slightly defensive here to try to break the toe, so perhaps aware that I am getting quite close. 55.8, second lap around there. So if you're into the 55s, race pace is pretty decent, although the top guys in the world are getting into the 54s during the race. Closing up to the Lambo, this was the end of lap number 4, and we're coming through the Bilstein curve here onto the back straight, and he's just going to have a bit of a wiggle mid-corner, and we're just going to get on the exit, get the position up into 3rd. The top 2 had really good pace here. Guy out in the lead, Frenchman in a Ferrari, driving very quickly, chased down by a Belgian in the Genesis, I do believe. And here we are in 3rd, so we're sitting quite good here. This is end of lap number 6. Progress this forward a little bit as we just go over the track limits there. You can get really over that curb, but that was a pixel too far, according to the stewards, getting a 0.5 second penalty. Not too bad of a penalty to serve, but never ideal. And so, losing a bit of time there, we're going to bring the car into the pit lane. And this is where my second mistake came, as you can see here, just crossing the white line. And the stewards never take kindly to that on Gran Turismo 7. And so as we come into the pit lane, not going to change the tyres or even take on any fuel, so it's kind of a pointless stop. Do have to do it. We get our 3-second penalty. There it is, confirmation of it. Very frustrating. A 3-second penalty is never a nice one to serve. It really does slow your car down a massive amount, as we are going to do here. And I mean, it's a horrible pain having to do that. Worse than childbirth, we all know that. And surrendering so much speed that the Lamborghini here, who we overtook earlier, is going to come back past me. Although into here, I think he was a little bit unsure about my positioning, and so he wasn't able to capitalise. Bit of contact on the way on the exit of the corner, but I do just about keep the position for the time being. Currently in 6th place, but with a couple of the cars towards the front of the pack. In fact, the top 3 still have to make a pit stop. And that's exactly what they're going to do now, as we can see on the screen. And so hopefully I can get back past some of these guys, probably not the Belgian. But with that 3-second penalty for crossing the pit entry line, that could actually prove to be quite tricky. So we're going to see here, to come through the final corner, if it is going to be enough or not. Bit of a wiggle on the exit. The BMW is still not perfect on corner exit. As we head down the main straight, they are coming out of the pit lane now. There they are. It's going to be very close, but not close enough for me, as the German and the Russian come in out 3rd and 4th, and that's quite clear evidence really that the 3-second penalty I got for crossing the pit entry line has cost me 3rd place. I should be maybe 3 seconds up the road here. I should be in 3rd, but here I am in 5th because I went over the line. One silly mistake cost me, and now we're under assault from the Lamborghini driver just behind. This isn't going to be easy from here to the end. Bit of contact here on the exit of the hairpin, while we just regather the car and keep it under control. Is it possible to keep up with 4th place here? Maybe go for a move, probably a bit too far back. But we're still very much under attack for our 5th place here. It's always nice to try to keep inside the top 5 if possible, but that is very much under threat right now. Through the chicane, the last place where you can really make a mistake, apart from the last corner. And we're going to come through. It is going to be a 5th place, but kind of left ruining the mistake I made by crossing the pit entry line. That probably ought to have been a podium without that very, very annoying mistake. I want to guide you through my qualifying lap here. So we've already got a 54.9, which is a solid lap, and it will put you in a decent-ish grid position depending on who's playing. I improved to a 54.799, but then allow me to guide you through my fastest lap. So the Ghost is the 54.799. Into the first corner, braking just before the 100 board, releasing the brake. I actually released the brake a little bit too late there, but dropping down nicely, exiting in 2nd gear. With this setup, this car will exit the corners quite nicely, although it is a little bit clunky through this first sector with lots of slow corners. Get the car pointed in early to turn 3. There's no time to be gained by turning in late there. Then make the most of the exit of turn 4. Getting a bit of oversteer, lost me maybe a 10th or so. 35.6 for the first split, as we tried to get to the left hand side on the exit of 5 to give us a better run on the exit of 6, making the most of the curb, really applying the power quite gently to make sure the car doesn't oversteer on the exit of the corner. It really is about the corner exit speed on this lap. Down to 1st gear, back to 2nd. Bit of a moment on the exit. You see the Ghost running wide on the exit of that corner, so there's definitely time to be gained in the lap. Committing nicely through Schumacher S. You can take that flat. You do have to take a bit of the curb though. Braking just before the 100 board. Into this one, off the brake, 2nd gear, power through, back to the left. Don't always have to go fully to the left. But out in 3rd gear, again making the most of the track limits on the exit to get a good run down the back straight. Definitely closer to the Ghost than I was at the start of the lap, suggesting I have gained a small amount. This could be a 54.5 or a 0.6 if this chicane comes off nicely. Really committing early, getting on the power as early as you can, trying to accelerate in a straight line if possible, and making the most of the track limits on the exit. Coming through the final corner, it is going to be an improvement. It could have been slightly better. There were still some mistakes in that lap, but it's going to be a 54.674. And that brings us nicely into the 2nd race, where with that improvement, that has moved me up into 3rd. Actually, I would have actually still started here, but it's always nice to have a faster lap time. Anyway, into turn 1, starting 3rd, up behind the Porsche of Flash Dagger, and then the Belgian in the Genesis once again, finished 2nd in the previous race. And so I was really beginning to notice the difference between the different cars here. It's really good that people are choosing different cars for this race. And we said it earlier, the Genesis will probably turn out to be the car most people end up picking, but Good to see the BMW, the Porsche, someone was driving a Mercedes in one of these races. Genesis is being picked, even the Supra, the Lamborghini Huracan just behind, the Ferrari won the first race. And so a decent amount of cars being chosen, which is always good to see. So this was 5th lap. This race was kind of a simple one in the sense that it just kind of spread out quite evenly. Nothing too much was happening. I was keeping up with Flash Dagger as best as possible. He had a bit of a mistake on the exit of the chicane, so decided to bail into the pit lane to minimise the time loss. And so at this point here, I kind of got caught out, because you can see the key 25 there just behind, 17.6 seconds behind. And this is often something that happens in these lobbies. You get some very fast players driving through from the back of the pack, and so even if you start towards the front, you're still under threat. My lap times weren't the best, 56.0 the fastest, but 3 of the laps are in the 57s, and that isn't really where I need to be in terms of race pace. I should be in the 55s, and so after a couple more laps, the gap to Key came down to 15.5, so he's gained about 2 seconds, or about 1 second a lap at this moment. As we peel into the pit lane, end of lap number 7, again not changing anything, just doing it because we have to. Leaving the pit lane, it was quite clear that we had been undercut and jumped by a couple of people. So we've got the Frenchman just in front in the Nissan GTR, and Key 25 in also the Nissan GTR, have both jumped ahead by pitting early and just lapping quite quickly in clear air. And so that was a very viable strategy of simply driving quite quickly. Now I was up behind, sorry, Consta was just behind me, and this was the main threat I had to my 4th position. So another player fighting through from the back of the pack, who obviously has a lot of pace. Consta is a World Tour level player, and so someone who's never easy to get behind. He's always going to have sort of this relentless pace, and he's very good at driving from the back of the pack to the front. And we have 1 lap left to go here to try to keep him at bay. This is not going to be easy, especially with the tyres wearing out as they are. You see the massive moment on the exit of the final corner, heading towards turn 1. It's the BMW battle. Brake a little bit too late into the hairpin of turn 1, and he's going to form a nice little switcheroo there to perfection and jump in ahead. So all I can do really at this point in time is either A, punt him off into oblivion, but that is typically frowned upon, so I'm not going to do that. But what we can also do is try to just stick with him as close as we can and just learn a thing or two. And what you notice about following the really fast players is just how much corner speed they carry, how little penalties they get, unlike me, and then how much acceleration they get on the corner exit. They're just so early on the power application, and they can keep perfect control of the car, which is so much easier said than done. In this race though, eventually finishing in another 5th place. Okay, as good as the BMW is, I want to choose a different car, and I think the car I'm going to go for is this, the Nissan Nismo GTR. The GTR was always a seriously strong car in Group 3. I'm not sure it is as strong now as it was maybe, let's say, a year ago or 6 months ago, but it certainly is a very strong car in Group 3, very good handling. And through here, I definitely cut this final chicane, and quite rightly get myself a 1 second penalty. But this was still a very good lap, a 54.5, which is quicker than my personal best. So it kind of shows you the potential in this car. Starting race number 3 in 6th position. And so this race began to fill up quite quickly. It always shows you if a race is popular or not by how many top level players begin to join the lobby. And this was certainly no exception. I think a lot of people do like this kind of combination. Group 3, Nürburgring Grand Prix, just driving as quickly as possible. No real fuel saving you have to do here. Yes, maybe a bit of tyre saving, nothing too outrageous. And so always quite a fun race to try to do. Flash Dagger in front in the Porsche, not having the best of times here through the first split. He's going to get a poor exit out of turn 4 and move aside. And we're going to move immediately up into 5th place. Good sign so far in the Nissan GTR. Trying to keep up with this very fast bunch of players immediately in front, and that's just never easy. These guys are so quick these days. kind of reminds me that I think I need to play this game a little bit more just to keep my speed up. Here, keeping too much speed up through the Schumacher S, running into the gravel, that does slow you down, but annoyingly gives you a penalty at the same time, and there it is, a 0.5-second penalty. And the only good thing, I suppose, is that because it's quite close to the penalty line, I'm not going to serve it on this lap. So as you can see, penalty line here, don't need to serve it right now. I've got an extra lap to play with. However, tactically, I don't really want to serve that and fall into the pack, so I'm going to serve my pit stop. Now, go into clear air, and then I can serve that penalty with all the time in the world. So exiting the pit lane in P12, and this is always quite a good strategy. You can see we're in very clear air, no one in front of me for a good sort of 15 seconds, so we don't really have to worry about bumping into traffic or anyone slowing us down, other than myself when serving a penalty, as you can see. Now, a couple of us pitted early. We've got Consta behind once again, so he was the guy who overtook me on the final lap on the previous race, so I know he's quick, and so inevitably he's going to catch up within a couple of laps, and hopefully we can tow along with him and try to gain some time. So lap number 5, the Lexus in front, the Polish driver who started I think second or third, having a mistake there and dropping a position. So this is the phase of the race now where people begin to pit and or make mistakes, and we can gain our positions back. Let's not forget we started in 6th place, now back to 8th, still trying to look for a few more positions before the end of this one, as now Consta very close behind in the Aston Martin, so another different car that people are using. So for some reason this race seems to have struck a bit of a sweet spot in terms of car selection. Lots of different cars being used, which is always good. I know I said that earlier, but I like to always say that. Anyway, that's another lap in the 55, so good pace here in the Nissan GTR, certainly better than what I was managing in the BMW. The BMW is absolutely a good car for this race, but I just feel like it just lacks, especially for this first sector. It feels so slow and clumsy. It just doesn't have the best of turning circles, and perhaps its looseness on the rear end is not working in its favour. You see Consta there just really clinical through that first sector, overtaking me and then pulling out immediately near enough a second. This is lap number 7 and I'm in 7th, up behind Flash Dagger in P6, and we're looking to try to recover a couple more positions here. So once again we're going to do battle with Flash Dagger, who's had a good sort of stint there to regain the position in front of me, and we're going to have to do it all again, try to get back past him. Let's see if we can do that. And the exit of turn 4, heading towards turn 5. That Porsche has really good traction. You can definitely notice that on the corner exits. He makes a bit of a mistake here, and I think he just wants to minimise time loss. He doesn't really fight this one too much. Just slows down the exit, just concedes the position. I'm quite happily going to take that, moving back into 6th place as we eventually get into 5th, courtesy of the last person pitting and taking their last pit stop, eventually then finishing the race in another 5th place. Another P5, a hat-trick of 5th positions. Is this the end of the 6th place curse? It might be. It might be. I'm going to go again, this time in the Genesis, which is a very quick car in Group 3 these days. And in terms of the setup I'm using on the screen right now, this lobby is seriously stacked right now. 7th on the grid. There's really quick guys at the back, loads of really quick guys at the front. Even just finishing 7th where I start will be a good job. But let's see how we do. Okay, yeah, this is the final race. Now in the Genesis, which was, as I kind of said earlier, probably going to be the strongest car for this race. Genesis has been very good in Group 3 recently. So a bit of a dive into the first corner there. It's not going to be enough to overtake Antonio here in the Supra. Now Antonio I know is very fast. The Supra, I don't know if it's one of the stronger cars for this race. The Supra normally is very quick, but I think this track is actually very much a handling circuit. Given its sort of medium speed corners, I don't think the top speed, the faster cars with the good acceleration, good top end, do that well here. I think it's kind of a medium speed handling kind of circuit. And so it's no surprise to see sort of the GTR doing well. The Genesis is always going to do well because it's just one of the stronger cars right now. But heading into towards turn 1 at number 2. And so we've got, 6 people starting this race in front of us. And it's always a case of, like, how many of these guys can I realistically try to overtake? My qualifying isn't always the best, so often I'm quicker than a few of the guys in front of me in the race. And I kind of targeted this Spaniard here, who just had a bit of a shaky start to this race. Got overtaken by Antonio and just began to drop back. So I thought, maybe, you know what, I can definitely get at least one of these positions in front. Top 2 are just long gone already. But here, this was quite an interesting moment because the Spaniard here, rather than going for the overtake after Antonio makes a mistake, he goes for the bump draft, and that only slows him down. And that gives me, therefore, the speed differential to go up the inside and claim 6th position off his hands. With the 2 guys behind now battling. And I tried to keep up with Antonio here, who has been dropped here by 3rd and 4th. Now I've been dropped by Antonio, this is lap number 5. And this is going to turn into something of a defensive race now, as we've got an Aston Martin driven by a Spaniard just behind. It's not going to be easy from here to the end to keep this guy at bay. And it's just one of the dynamics of this kind of top split level lobbies you get at the moment, where you've got really quick players at the front and the back. And so when you start in the middle, like I tend to do, it feels like you're the meat in the sandwich getting assaulted from both ends, and that sounds really rude. You're trying to get the point I make, that you've got all the quick guys at the front who are just going to pull away, and then the guys from behind overtaking you because they're really quick, so it feels like you can't really win. And just avoiding the white line, we've learned our mistake. We're not going to make that entry line mistake again. That was my pit stop there at the end of lap 7. 3 laps to go in the race. We have been jumped there by Breyer just in front. We've lost 1 position and to the guys who are starting towards the back of the pack. Can we keep 8th? I mean, it's only 8th. It might seem like, well, it's only 8th. There's nothing good about that. But I do genuinely think that in this caliber of lobby, finishing sort of in this sort of position is not too bad of an achievement. These guys are some of the best in the world in this lobby. And so even keeping up with them at all is, by my standards, quite a good job. I do need to play this game a lot more, I think, to really hone my craft. I know people think that I play it every day, but it's not quite like that. And I do wish I could commit a bit more time to just really putting in the laps. And that's what you've got to do in Gran Turismo to get your speed up and get your consistency up. Just really hammer in the laps and really work on every part of your game. So it's a really close battle here between myself and this Aston Martin. And this is going to be the story of the race from here to the end, really. A really good battle between the 2 of us. As I'm not sure I managed my tyres correctly. I think I left my brake bias a little bit too close towards the front as the Spaniard there serves a penalty. That gives me a bit more breathing room, but it's only going to postpone the pressure. As you can see, as we come into turn 5, lap number 9, he's immediately back on me, and this is not going to be an easy race from here to the end. I'm going to pretty much face constant pressure. In fact, he's going to get past and move up into 8th, albeit with a 0.5 second penalty. I'm going to show the inside, not necessarily going to go for that move, but it's just to try to put him off of his line a little bit. I need to keep as close as I possibly can before the penalty line, so let's whip it forward to the penalty line as he serves it here. He had really good grip on that car. I'm not sure if he's changed his tyres. Most people weren't changing their tyres, just for reference, in this race. But you can do it to get fresh tyres. You just lose a couple of seconds in the pit lane. Now, this is lap number 9, coming up into the final corner. Went defensive here into the final turn. 1 more lap left to go. Am I going to be able here to keep the position? Moving to a defensive line. Very, very racy here indeed. Protecting the inside with everything I have. We've been jumped by the Hyundai of Mehdi there, just up in front. We've lost another position. Going deep in towards turn 1. He is going to appear on my right hand side briefly, but I've got the inside here. I'm going to park it on the apex. I know that switcheroo is coming. Wait for the contact. Boom, there it is, and we can go. Keeping the position. This is surely very frustrating for the Spaniard behind, but I'm doing everything I can here to try to keep my position as we are now on the final lap of 10. It's been a great race. Trying to keep up with the top guys, never easy at all. It's good to be in the lobby with them to really understand how quick you can really do this race. I'm doing my best here. I do need to run this race a lot more often, try to get my total time down. This race, I think, has come down to a little bit of mismanagement of the tyres, so that's why I'm really struggling here on this final lap. The front tyres really do not have much grip at all, getting a lot of understeer up into the Schumacher S, side by side once again. I'm on the inside though, so I can keep the position for now, as he's looking left, right and centre for this overtake. If he could, he'll go underneath or over. That's not really an option. He's gone up the inside, bit of contact mid-corner, gone a little bit wide. He's slowed down though, as an acknowledgement of the contact. And so as we round out onto the final straight here, or final big straight, we've got a big queue of cars. 3 cars immediately behind, so this is really important that I get this right. I'm going to move to the left-hand side, go defensive, and try to preserve the left-hand side on the way into the chicane. On the exit, trying to get a good run here, bit of contact, and we get the run, we get the momentum. It's going to be safe, it's going to be 8th. It was a bit of a defensive fight there at the end of this race, but thankfully, after all of that, finishing in 8th place. Held on for an 8th. That's the best I can do there, but that was basically it felt like a top split lobby. Some of these guys are seriously quick at the front. Great racing though, a very competitive daily race this one. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you next time. Goodbye.